Okay, so we've done the angles, and again, the IC is the most, it's true. When we do the points, the tendency was astrology is always marked more outwardly. The tendency is to count 1 point for the ascendant, 1 point for the midheaven. We could, if you wanted to. I haven't done. I kept that sort of tradition as we went along. But really, the IC section a pivotal point. You could add a point for the IC and the descendant. You could make it a 14-point system instead of a 12-point system when you're looking at the signs. Wouldn't change the houses, but it could change the signs. You could add these 2 points in. It would add it in. In this case, you would be adding 2 more cardinal points in. You know, and you into her cardinal stuff. She already had 7 cardinal. It would up it. But then I thought, I'm not sure if that over accentuates or not, but I didn't. I kept it just to the name outward things that were bounding. But when you're working with a chart, it's one thing seeing numbers. When you start working the planets and touching the sensitive points, the angles aren't planets, they're nerves, they're sensitive points. So they're not functional in the same way. I didn't want to give the angles, although they have importance, I'm not sure I wanted to pile it up that much. So the 1 point for the ascendant midheaven was enough, in my opinion, and it has been. But if you felt that you wanted to add that, you could add that in, and you'd be working with a 14-point system, and your totals would be. I just try to keep it simple to work it with. We're just trying to get through these associations. So, okay, now we pretty well have done the basic assessment of the chart. Now I'm going to pull these off, and we're going to pull up the Saturn. But before we go to Saturn, normally we're talking about the history, and I'm just going to tell a couple of things about her. But aside from being a very good real estate person, she is a white mother. She has a few kids, and has always been devoted in taking care of her kids. But her marriage did end. She did get out of her marriage. It ended. She still stayed around keeping care of kids. She had to take care of the kids. But over time, she met someone else and married another fellow. I think he was an older fellow, but they were both really aligned and shared the same ideas and same values, and it was very supportive. So she went from a very non-supportive, harsher, non-culturally supportive relationship to a much more refined sharing and a much more idealized relationship. So I didn't know her so much with her family. I knew her in and around it because she would still go try and help her mom, help her folks and stuff like that, and the kids, and so she would always be around it, even though she had moved on to another relationship. So even that relationship, for its ideal, it still had to put up with the presence of the mom, the family, kids, the extended family. What can I say? She worked a long time, but they end up. She has her business, and see they live across country. So his place was more in the States, and he came up here. He was up here a while, but really they have 2 places. She lives here in Canada for most of the spring, summer, fall, and in the winter she lives in the southern states where it's nice and warm and beautiful. So they have the 2 properties. And she's having to get everything together, go down there. She gets the escape. She comes back, and she has both, but she doesn't want to be away from the kids, to be totally away. So it's almost a perfect balance of being able to be in both worlds and getting away from the winter as well. That's going to please any Taurus moon or Libra to be where it's nice and warm or beautiful. So this is basically her world. But I mean, she lives in style. She has taste. She has nice taste, and she works hard to maintain it all. And at the same time, does well enough that she can get away for 3 or 4 months and be in one place versus the other. And the husband is very supportive around this. So also, I believe he's significantly older than her. So he's more responsible, but older, and not so much threatened by the family. So she finally found the good Saturn to go along with. And it just worked well for her. So then her puzzle became her marriage, which was nice, and the family, which she loved and still had to take care of and help out with. But getting the kids out of the house might have been a trouble. Once the kids were out of the house, that freed up that moon Pluto. You'd think when kids get out, you don't have to care as much, but they're out, but it actually pulls you in more. So they concerned about it and they're helping out. And so she's always trying to be helpful. So if the kids need something, who's going to be helpful? Who are they going to go to? Hi, Mom. Oh, you need help. So she's going to drive to help the kids. And her balance is how much can you help the kids? How much can you help the husband? How much are you aligned? And this is part of her puzzle. She wants to include it all. She's a very beautiful, nice lady. So it's she's got the mechanics of being a really incredible astrologer, not just business, but on the mystical side of things. She just loves it. But trying to get, I think he accepts it, but I don't think he's as inclined towards it, so as supportive around it. So it's still her hobby or her interest. I see building up. At some point in her life, this is going to be blossoming more and more. Okay, now, so let's just, we don't know the timing of things, so we're just going to try and imagine some things and try and work through the timing. We see in her chart, I have it here, we don't have exact dates to compare against it, but we see it's going to reinforce her natal chart. Her sun starts in the 6th house. Her Saturn starts up in the 7th. And as the Saturn in the 7th, so the first few years of her life, like growing up to getting up to the midheaven when she's about 3 or 4, is just she's growing up in her family's world. This is our kid, this is it, and it's there. And it builds up. Her status came at 3 or 4. But by the time she went to school, and that is going through, she has the influence of going to school, being pitched. But by the time she's about 12 years old, Saturn, even by about 8 or 9, Saturn's going into a 12th house. It's a big 12th house. Saturn's going to, it goes through some houses fairly quickly, but it goes through the 12th house. It's going to take 5 years to get through that 12th house. So from about 8 to 13, no, maybe from 9 to 15, Saturn's going to be going through, and she's going to feel more and more isolated, more and more, I don't fit into this. I don't fit into the way I was brought up. And what am I coming out of this world? So to me, I see it, she's born a family from Europe, a European family in Canada. They came from Europe to Canada. She's in Canada. She's lived in that world, but as she started to get it to go through school, she started to get more exposed to other cultures, other situations, or Canadian culture even, and she would start feeling not fitting in so much and not live. So by the time Saturn hit her ascendant at 15, she knows she's insecure. Saturn, before it even hit her ascendant, it's going to oppose her sun. It's going to oppose her sun, then oppose her ascendant. So by 14, this is before 14, 15. So this is 40, 13, 12, 13. You have a very unhappy young girl, just starting her life and just starting to grow up and blossom into femininity without much support and feeling isolated and feeling socially displaced. I don't fit in, I can't live like that. She's going to be disassociating during those years to the family that she grew up in, the Saturn being above the horizon. When it hits the ascendant, Saturn's going to provide a very deep identity crisis. And this is Saturn opposes her sun, so it would have started either feeling hemmed in even before that. So as she was starting to become, so that's again 11, 12, but as she's starting to want to socialize or meet people, she would be naturally inclined to do. She would be encountering all kinds of restrictions and disassociation, not fitting in, and rules, not being able to do. So she's feeling really oppressed and insecure. What am I doing here? The pit of despondency as Saturn hits the ascendant, the identity complex, the identity crisis. So here we see it. It starts off, that would have been in 1968, 69. Okay, she has her identity crisis. In 67, 68, that was Saturn opposed to Sun. So in those years, that was just after the hippie years of all the music and all the radical changes in North America, and everybody's trying to be free. She would have seen the ideal, but she wouldn't have been able to live that. She was sort of feeling hemmed in. She would have had a lot of restrictions and not being allowed to grow up, having to try and fit within the family stance. So she didn't get support coming into it, being into puberty and into teenage. She didn't get support from her family. You know, it was not nice, not in a nice way. Anyway, probably got told what to do. So by the time Saturn hit her ascendant, Nothing's like it. What I mean, it's opposing her Venus. I'm not. So if she idealized about something, was trying to flirt with someone, she'd been put down for it, not late for it. So at that age, there's a huge crisis building up. Whether the parents split up, whether there's some violence, whether there's some difficulty, but she certainly didn't fit into it then. And so she began her world to search for her world as Saturn hit her ascendant. But by the time it hit her ascendant, she'd already been opposed to Venus, opposed to the Moon, opposed to Mercury. She'd already was opposing the Venus and going to oppose the Mercury. She wasn't feeling that confident. So her school marks, her feelings within, her sense of confidence would have been as far away from herself as she could possibly be. So that first 10 years built her up, but not in the way that she would have chosen. And then it was caving in that early age where she's feeling unsupported. What am I going to do? I can't stay here. What am I doing? And they're never going to make decisions for me. Even as a young kid, not fair. But they were brothers, or there's family and things involved. It was a complicated issue, but she was not feeling she belonged in there at that time. So that begins the period of personal growth. This insecurity that comes at the ascendant tells you what's missing at whatever age you are, but you don't really have control of your life at that age. But it's the time where you're supposed to be in school the most. So she started, from that point on, she wanted to learn. She started to think for herself. Partly school of hard knocks, but meeting friends, meeting people at school, but maybe not being allowed to be around them that much, or maybe having that even restricted. In this process, Saturn would have hit this, gone over the Moon. So that would have been, let's see, sorry, the Saturn opposed Saturn, and her Moon's opposed Saturn. So every one of the Saturn points, Saturn will conjunct the Moon opposed to Saturn. So just when she needs to live a certain way, it's going to be restricted, and Saturn's opposing it, Saturn's on top. So Saturn doesn't bring easy energies for her. I threaten things. So even then, it was difficult. So getting through school, feeling confident, doing things, feeling supported, relationships, forget it. She was really inhibited or reserved, or certainly challenged. Even if relationships were happening, they were in really two different worlds. But this was building up to feeling disassociated, difficulty around money, or how I don't get the things I want, or whatever. And then Saturn went into the third house. We're not even talking. I can't communicate. I can't express things with everybody. They're just thinking a certain way, because the third house is the house of brothers and sisters, and really family attitudes or prejudices or biases in the family come up through there. So by the time Saturn hits her IC, she's gone through this disassociation, she's gone through the insecurity, she's been trying to figure out things for herself. By the time Saturn hits her IC, she doesn't know what she wants, but she knows what she doesn't want anymore. At this point, she's 15, about 18, what year would have been? Hits the IC in 74, 75. Squared her sun, hits the IC.